Hey, gang, and welcome back to Taking Chances with a special this year focusing on entrepreneurship. I've got a very special guest coming in from, well, I think you're in Germany, but Sebastian, you'll be able to tell me. So, my co-founder from Ascendium, Sebastian Fleischmann, coming in live from, are you in Germany or where are you at today, Sebastian?
Currently in Germany. Soon I'll be hopefully in Italy again for New Year's celebration.
So, you're the only other person like myself for all of my fans that is hard for me to keep up on what part of the world you're in. But I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today, Sebastian. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. For my guests, any of my clients, you might have seen Sebastian on a couple discovery calls with us, but we really just want to dive deep today as we're starting to pull these narratives of entrepreneurship out into the field. What I really wanted to showcase for all of you folks too is just the power of networking, right? If you remember the power of networking we talked about a couple years ago, my life has been full blast because of embracing that. So, Sebastian, I want to dive in a little bit with you. Sebastian is the owner of Fleischmann Consulting and now the co-founder of Ascendium. I'd love us just to talk a little bit about your background, Sebastian, and if we can kind of expose to our clients how we got to know each other. But what I don't know as much about, tell me about your origin story, Sebastian. You know, I know the business you own today, but what I'd love to learn more about is, you know, what your years looked like as a young man, how you got involved in business. Like I'm assuming your family was a little bit, but just tell me a little bit about Sebastian from, 1 year old until the man I see before me today.
Oh, I had a great childhood. My parents provided me with everything that was available. We had no struggles at all. So I'm coming basically from a very old German company, which is now 106 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had a great youth. I was not the best student in school. I never wanted to learn, and I never understood the systems. So I was always entrepreneur by DNA, more or less. And the fact that my brother is 20 years older than me also brought me always to the situation that I had to deal with older people. My parents were 41 and 46 when I was born, so they were a bit older once I got to my teenage years. And so they took me everywhere where they went. And this was usually some entrepreneurial events. And so I met a lot of people, sat at a lot of tables that usually people of my age wouldn't sit. And I saw a lot of them doing great things. And this was the start of everything. I wanted to be like the big players and wanted to do the same, basically.
So I love that in the DNA too. And you'll get to meet some of our other partners, Robert Frankus. You know, when we go to trade shows, one of the things I love about him is all of his kids are going with him, right? Most of his kids are out of college now and actually supporting the business, but they're supporting the business because he nourished that from childhood. I want to go back to the first thing you said, though. I don't want to just glaze that over. Did you say that your family owned a business for over 160 years? Was that what I heard you say?
Yeah, exactly. It's in the automotive industry here in Germany, the southern part, where you also find Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. So my great-grandfather founded the company in 1919. He started basically as a bicycle mechanic, and the business grew until they had, in the end, 2,000 employees, which we still have today. And there was a lot in between. So we built bathtubs, fridge doors, tractor parts, and then we moved on to a bigger facility to Heilbronn, which is close by from the city where I live in. And then we started to produce parts for the Porsche 911. And
I mean, that's just so profound, Sebastian. I know you and I know each other quite well these days, but you don't see legacy businesses that are family owned in the States, right? I mean, you just don't. There's some that are out there, but I can't think of any that come to name. Some of the legacy brands that have been around forever, ADT, they've passed hands like thousands of times. I don't want to make this whole episode about that, but this is just such a differentiation that most Americans are never going to hear about. How did your family do that? And then the next question I want to ask that's antithesis is like, why are you not working with them in that industry, which I think leads us into what we're actually doing. But so is that 7 generations that you listed, or was that 6 generations? Did you say great, or how many generations of your family have owned that?
It's I'm the 4th generation now. So it was my great grandfather who founded the company. Usually in Germany, we have a saying that the 4th generation is usually the one that loses the company, because the company grows over the generations when it usually starts with one owner. He gets 2 or 3 kids. They get 2 or 3 kids or even more sometimes. So in the end, in the 4th generation, we have 16 people now. And you can imagine how difficult it is with shareholder meetings to get everybody on one table to decide into the right direction. So it's difficult sometimes. I get that. Many companies fail in that process. We did it pretty well. But coming back to your question, why I am not working actively in the company, it's basically my parents that always told me, do your own thing. So this is also part of the DNA thing. They saw me, they knew always I had to follow my own route. And they always said, you can always come back to the company, but you need to, stand in life, have your life built up, and then you can come back and maybe work in the company. This is what I do today. I'm an advisor in the company, so I help all the managing directors, the CEO. I recently met with the CIO when we went to Gravity, one of the German now AI centers that are being built up, called from Dieter Schwarz. So I'm just constantly talking to them, supporting them wherever I can, making contacts. I'm a networker, so I introduce them to people that might help in certain situations. Because the company is so big with 2,000 employees, it's too firm for me. So if I want to make a quick decision, it's always everything takes very, very long.
Big businesses take a long time to make decisions, and they have lag. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that a ton. Just to hop in on that, though, you have profoundly great parents, Sebastian. I mean, this is one of the things we talk about in the States quite a bit. Our parents can love us for as much as they know, but a lot of times they're going to unintentionally try to put their visions into their kids, and like you and I've talked about this a little bit. I think that's very profound that they both nourished the entrepreneurship DNA and didn't do what a lot of folks would do in the States, at least, is like, if I have my kid and I'm nourishing the DNA of entrepreneurship, it better be in my fucking business. That's kind of like the American philosophy, So I think they just gave you a lot of freedom. I'm assuming that freedom when you were in your youth allowed you to explore some of these endeavors that you're doing now. I mean, do you want to unpack any of that with me? So they're taking you to some big conferences, some big endeavors, sitting at tables that you shouldn't have been. But at the same time, they're nourishing this, like, Sebastian, here's what we do, but we want you to stand on your own. So like, I'm assuming that catapulted you to kind of go trying a bunch of different things in that stage in life. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely, exactly. And I started being an entrepreneur for real when I was 16. I founded my first company. It was a new concept back then. Today, it's very similar to what you call drop shipping. So I made a deal with a very big IT shop. I sold their parts and I just got a commission, but it was all with my brand. My invoices were sent out and everything. So similar to what dropshipping is today, but back then I didn't really know anything about bookkeeping and taxes and all that. So I made a lot of money. Yeah, I made a lot of money and then I lost a lot of money. And this was the point where I said, okay, I really need to learn now. And then I got a commercial education at first in the marketing branch in an advertising agency with event management stuff. And there I built up own department more or less because they were very classic. So it was still with a manual work of creating documents and all that. And they were not too much into tech and internet. And they had a lot of customers that were requesting websites and social media marketing already back then. And I was very interested in computers because my father is like a tinkerer, he's an engineer and he was one of the first guys that started CAD, CAM stuff, so computer aided softwares. And he connected machines, automation, what we call today. But back then it was very, very new. So I had the interest for computers and then just one led to another. I built a department for the whole web stuff. And from there on, my journey went on to other companies then too.
And Sebastian, what I think is interesting, I just got done filming the episode with Mr. Jameson. Obviously, we worked together, and I would argue that we came from very different backgrounds, the three of us, but we think about the world in a very similar way. In that breadth of experience, I'm assuming you got exposed to multiple systems and multiple opportunities in different industries. Did you see some congruences for those opportunities, right? Because one of the skill sets I think you have adjacent to networking is really to be able to see a problem from a high level systematically and to kind of get the feedback from the consumer where the pain point is, and then to approach it with a systematic fix, And what I mean by that is, I think that knowledge had to come from all of us somewhere, right? For myself, it was running multiple operations in multiple different businesses, seeing what people did right, what they did bad, starting to grow another concept and say, oh man, how I grow a healthcare facility is the same way I grow a hospitality facility. For sure, there's different nuances, but that back-end system, it's the same. Did you get exposed to that more than most people would, kind of in that stage of, exploring the different industries and different systems? And did that kind of help with the foundational information that you have today?
It helped a lot. In the beginning, I couldn't understand what I know already because I accompanied my father quite often in this corporate surroundings. And then I did my own stuff after I did the commercial education. I went to a consulting company in Frankfurt. They did e-commerce consulting and they did all sorts of IT systems, CRM systems, ERP systems in order to get old companies into the modern world. And what they also did was like a startup hub and startup,
Like go to market stuff and strategies
yeah,
launching.
exactly. So they helped them to get also their MVP going. And so I saw the corporate world and also the startup world, and everything began to make sense in my mind because everything was working basically in the same way with a different speed, with different systems, other scales, but mainly it's all the same. Communication is the same. They all expect the same quality. Saw a lot of similarities between all the worlds.
Well, this is pretty interesting to get to know this too, because I would always say, and we do work together, but I always thought you had a very front end marketing mindset for an engineer, right? And that's just a unique personality that I don't get to see too often. We talk to engineers all day, every day. All of them are
Mm.
great. Some folks really struggle with applying it to real world scenarios, though. And then also like how to market to a consumer. So I feel that you've done that very well. And that was just an oddity to me when I first met you. I'm like, who is this engineer guy that I actually like talking to as well? Because
Mm.
sometimes those conversations are a little bit hard. So talk to me a little bit. And I know a lot about Fleischmann Consulting, but I think this is a good transition. So it sounds like in your formative years, you're, exposed to a breadth of experience from the family business, understood that that was maybe not for you, but you're still advising, got exposed to a bunch of marketing, a bunch of other opportunities as far as tech goes. Talk to me a little bit about Fleischmann Consulting and like how did that get started? And what was your kind of number one consumer for that? Like what were you looking for?
I mean, Fleischmann Consulting started way back. So my first company was already Fleischmann Consulting. So everything that I did over the couple of years, the past almost 2 decades now, is always around tech, always around IT, always very close connected to sales and marketing, and always deep into problem solving because I think I have ADHD and a little bit of autism. So this made me look lazy in school, but it was just nothing for me because there were no real problems for me to solve. So I always went ahead and tried to find problems that I can really solve. So this is basically where Fleischmann Consulting started. I founded the company now almost 2 years ago because I combined a lot of businesses together. And in my previous experiences, I mean, there was a lot in between the consultants company. I went bigger and bigger. In the end, I did a post-merge project for a German private equity house. They bought 2 companies with 2,500 employees each. Um,
Big
and I
enterprise
was,
endeavors.
yeah, exactly. And I was responsible for the harmonization of the sales system, CRM, ERP systems again. And this was the final decision when I said, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with the consulting, basically, more or less. What I'm focusing on is now problem solving. The name Fleischmann Consulting might be a bit confusing because I sure consult, but consulting is not my main business. My main business is networking, connecting people, connecting tech with people, and making everything just way more efficient than before.
I would agree with that too. And how we got linked up, we'll unpack a little bit, but I think a good conversation too. And it's funny to me. This is a second podcast with two founders of an AI company, and we done good, Sebastian. We're 15 minutes in though, and we haven't used the term AI yet, right? So I'm just curious from your perspective, because I don't know if we've talked about this a ton. When did you get pulled into the AI field? I know with the automation, machine learning from the legacy, so you've probably been immersed in this a little bit longer. But when did you first start seeing AI come to market and be like, man, I need to embrace this? We need to start develop some stuff. Like, how did that perspective unravel for you or unfold?
AI is a buzzword today because AI is a thing that exists since the late 90s, 1900s. So there have been a lot of systems. It was the data lake, it was data warehousing, and then it became more intelligent. So then at some point it was named artificial intelligence. I think the first love for that I had when I studied mechatronics in robotics and automation, because then I learned a lot more about where comes the whole AI thing from. So machine learning, neural nets, and all the basics, basically. So the math we learned, how does
The
everything work, come
foundational
together.
kind of knowledge, right?
Exactly. So this was when I fell first in love, and then when I saw OpenAI bringing their systems out, I saw Meta doing their stuff early on when they shut down the AI because it started communicating in a language that nobody could understand. So
I
it was
remember
very
that too.
intriguing from the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
beginning for me. And then I looked deeper into it. At that time, I was working with a partner in a company in Germany on a lot of automation stuff already. So it was very, very close to the things that we already did. So we just bought a computer, we built a server with some GPUs. We already experimented with the first LLMs that were openly available, and built the first systems already for clients of ours.
And it's interesting too, because like it's even a hard pivot for me to go into, like with your business, because in a weird way, Sebastian, you've kind of been in business from birth. Like, so we don't talk to a lot of people like that. And kind of what I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like you were really a man trying to find your path, which I think all of us are, and I think, I talked to Bob about this a little bit. I got baptized into business from hospitality in the first 5 years that I was a business owner. I ran away from the industry I'm from, like tooth and nail. And Bob was saying the same thing about the military, right? I'm just like, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. I can just do so much more. But really what's interesting for me too is I never really loved running a restaurant, and I ran hundreds of them at a time as a VP. But what I really started to focus on, even when I left operations, is I love team development, and I love to focus on helping people solve problems. A lot of the times I was solving in operations weren't operation problems, and this is just weird. It was the stress that comes with being a business owner or operating 150 million revenue. A lot of people make silly decisions around that, right? Like, we're just not trained, I don't think, in any country that well, unless you have your kind of parents, of what to do with this kind of stress. I talked to a lot of people that have came into, some lights out revenue pretty quick. We're looking like we're into one of those endeavors ourselves right now, but it paralyzes a lot of people, and it'll make a lot of good people turn bad. And what I mean by that is they just don't have that foundation to really build a sustainable avatar of themselves off of. And I just find that you've always been someone, even for me, as we've done some of these endeavors and closed doors, have had always have heated conversations, but you approach your life in such a stoic mentality. And I do think, getting to know you a little bit, it's probably from that layers of education you had from your parents. I don't see a lot of second, third, fourth generation people speaking as highly of their family as you do. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot with that, but that in itself, for the folks that have always followed me, man, I don't care where the foundation comes from. If you didn't get it from your family and you're in business, you're going to have to go get it somewhere. For me, I had a really good upbringing. None of my family has done any of this entrepreneurship. My grandfather, Sebastian, just so you know, owned a bunch of restaurants and hotels, passed away before my dad was born. So I've always thought I was just kind of born with this knowledge. But if I really have to reflect, it was from, making a lot of mistakes forward, being supported in certain groups, and really, having a good culture around me. But for you with Fleischmann Consulting, I'll just tell my perspective. I got linked up with Sebastian working on a couple cohabitated projects where I just got to know Sebastian, how you think. I think you were working with, I don't want to misspeak, but you're still involved, but with Elusive Services at the time, right? When we got to meet in Bar Louie. And randomly, what I want you guys to know, because Bob's episode was released before this, to go back to the first year of Taking Chances, most of that, Sebastian, was about the power of networking. And I would agree with you. I think you were a genius, but you also, as an engineer, have a marketing skill set that's beyond my mind, right? In networking, I really feel like you can apply high-level information in a very bite-sizable, consumable manner to people. And then, just like I was saying with Bob, none of us try to sell. But talk to me a little bit about, so you're going through the transition, you're starting to fix things. I know even you and I have had these conversations around projects right now, but talk to me a little bit about your path as your business owner, right? What did that transition look like from you as you knew you were stepping out of your parent's shadow, for lack of a better term, starting to do the consulting? You were on the project that you're like, I just did this other big project and I think I'm going all in. What did that transition look like? And even a harder question, what were you thinking when you were going through that? Because these are some of the stories I try to get out, right? The subconscious things that we're thinking as men or women when we're doing these endeavors, where maybe everyone sees us that we've got high confidence, and maybe we did. But I think those subtleties of what we do behind closed doors when we're challenging ourselves are really the benefits that we can pull out.
Absolutely. What my mother and my parents told me, so to go my own path, I took it literally. So I didn't take any of their network. I didn't take any of the contacts that they had. I really went for my own thing. And I met the people usually when I was young on bar camps, on startup events. And this is also how I met the guy I worked for in Frankfurt. I was a young guy and he saw the potential in me and he gave me a chance. And we worked on amazing projects. And for one project, we had an investor who was one of the richest men in Germany. He has founded a very big German, and I think today it's even an international insurance company. And we worked closely together with him. And so later on, the investor gave me a new contact of one of his colleagues, which was founding an LED company, a manufacturer in Germany. And so he brought me over to my first CEO position, basically. And this was also the point where I went out of this being an assistant, being a consultant, being a junior,
Kind of behind the
then a
scenes to the front of
senior
it.
consultant. Yeah, exactly. Because I was always working for people. And this was the first company where I started being the head, and then I had to do my own experiences with employees and everything. Of course, I had it in the past a little bit, but there was always somebody who was responsible in the end. When there was a hiccup, I could always ask somebody. But this was the start of being my own leader. So, and then I started all these leadership things, started to learn how does it work? How do I do it? How do I lead? How do I talk to the people? Because back then I also thought often that the the employees, my colleagues need to be my friends, but then I learned quickly this is not a good idea. So
Yeah.
if you can work successfully together, you can become friends. It's a better way. The other way around, it usually didn't end well. Let's just
We
say
always say
like
that
that.
in operations, it's better if friends happen, it's a lagging factor. It shouldn't be the leading, and usually you'll keep things safe there too. But I appreciate that. So were you feeling it? Like, I guess I try to pull this out always on taking chances, Sebastian. Did you have confidence when you're going through there? And again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but this is something where I can say when I launched HC Resource was about 3 months before the pandemic. I was about to exit Feihu. I had a lot of trust in myself, but I'm not going to lie to you, Sebastian. I mean, I definitely had my moments of being a little, I like to swear on my show, a little bit of a bitch victim, saying, woe is me. I just started this business and it's the fucking pandemic and what am I going to do? And I went to a dark place for about 2 days and that's all I could do. But I didn't have a lot of confidence. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had to build that confidence back into myself. I had a lot of dark days where, my inner monologue was like, Jesus, man, and I'm sorry if this offends my parents. They really supported me as well as they could, but nobody was standing around me at the time when I had a job making $250,000 a year, telling everyone that I'm going to leave everything I do to go start an idea that I don't want to say no one's ever done before, but the first jump I made was to Feihu, right? So I'm going from being this big corporate business owner, telling my parents that I'm going to move to Colorado and sell an illegal substance that just became legal. So even when I say that out loud, I don't blame my parents for being like, hey, should you really be doing that? But they also never stood in my way, Sebastian. They gave me a lot of higher level caution. I talked to a lot of young entrepreneurs in the States about that. This might not be something that's prevalent in Europe, but in America, a lot of the emotional debt that's holding people back is the debt of trying to fulfill an image to their parents' head that they might never be able to, and it's not even an image of themselves. So I don't know if that's relevant or not. But for you, when you were making that transition, and I know I love this too because it's culturally a little bit different. Did you have a lot of confidence? And it's okay if you did, but I'm just curious to the mindset as when you were going into there, because I know we consult sometimes. It's hard because you have a lot of influence without authority, but you essentially went from having a lot of influence with no authority to a lot less influence and 100% authority probably overnight. I'm assuming that transition was a bit much to digest, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I still have today sometimes days where I think, man, I have too many projects. Is this the right way to do? What should I do next? There are these days. I don't think that this will be over ever. You will always have these days where you struggle a little bit, but in the end, I know what I can do, what I'm capable of, and I can build great things. But it also can be that the time is not right for the big thing that I think is great. Sometimes even the big people get ideas, develop the products, and the market is just not ripe for it yet. So can always happen.
Well, that's what I love too. And I think this is a good segue into us starting Ascendium, because Sebastian is truly my co-founder. When I say this, I mean, Sebastian, if it's okay with you, we didn't prep this, but I love to talk about how we founded this. And then relatively quick, man, we weren't even 2 weeks into this where we had to update our manpower and our org chart significantly because of success, So from my perspective, when I met Sebastian, it was at the same meeting that I met Mr. Jameson on. We had hand worked on a couple projects. I was getting pulled into AI, high level conversation, and I'll let Sebastian talk about this when we go into Ascendium. We both, I would say this, the people that are fully bullish on AI are wrong. The people that are fully out on AI are wrong. Kind of like what Sebastian said, AI is a buzzword. What I hate right now is all the fast launch companies that are launching bullshit technology on Claude or Manus. They're not getting developed. But to articulate what we founded this for is Ascendium was going to be the fast launch problem solving wing to software develop automation solutions for HR workflows while we're working on our own language model in the background. Now, from my perspective, when we started this, and I want to say this hourly tool, the beta, you've been talking to my team about it. A lot of you folks have maybe talked to me personally. We did not assume when Sebastian and I launched this, right? So I'm like, Sebastian, I've got this workflow. I've got this solution that I coded. And I'm not an engineer guy. So like it was working, but I couldn't sell. And I said, but Sebastian, we just need a vessel so we can work together because I've seen Sebastian work. I've seen how he's thought. I was in the middle of a software development process with Bob Jameson as a client. And I'm like, look, Bob's working on this long process. It's going to take too long. And I'm fearful, just like you said, Sebastian, that by the time we get it developed, another solution is going to come out. So we started a company with our key players from my team and Sebastian's team. We went into closed beta where everything I told Sebastian, I was wrong. I said, no one's going to respond to us about this. And we've got probably months to work on this. And within, 7 days of announcing it, I think we closed the closed beta down. But what I think we did awesome, Sebastian, give it over to you. I really had to get to know you. For us, our relationship changed instantly, right? I mean, we went from being friends and colleagues and consultants to within 7 days, now we're pitching to enterprise clients where I'm talking to CEOs and investors day 14 that are like, we don't care about this tool. Just tell us everything you guys can do. So Sebastian and I had to, just to be honest with this, I don't mind sharing this. We had to halt and we're like, dude, what the fuck? We've got too many projects. And when we really slowed down, it's like, no, this is successful. So what we kind of internalized is pulling Mr. Jameson in, getting the network that we both had around us of great software development companies that we have developed software with before that we're ready to outsource to. And I kind of want to give it over to you for your perspective, Sebastian, because I think this is good to film raw. I mean, that is how I literally saw this start, but I'm curious to hear you just say, like, why did you start with Shaun Coe and HC Resource? And how brutal did that get really quick? Because I don't care if you share all of that. Fans to get to know a little bit more about me, the good, the bad, and the ugly as well. But I'm just curious from your perspective, because it's been an interesting 60 days, bro, for sure.
Definitely. I mean, when we met, the story behind that is a network where Bob Jamieson, Nicholas Lawless, and me were members of. So we knew each other already. And I was also a little bit into HR, into headhunting, because I'm a networker. So this is, a close topic. And this was the first conversation we actually had. So it was about HR.
Yeah, you were recruiting with us, I think. And I was like, this guy doesn't need to recruit with us. Like, Nick, why did you link me up with him to recruit? He's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, and then we didn't hear from each other for quite some time. And then I went to the States and it was clear, okay, we're going to meet. And I just had the feeling, the intuition, which is, leads back to great networking. Hey, we need to bring all to one table. And this was the thing where we met in Bar-Louis with Bob Jamieson, you, Nick Lawless, and me. And from there on, everything started, basically. So it was clear we have the right idea, the right markets behind us, the right teams and systems, and we can do great things. And from there, everything started. And thanks to the experience that all of us have, we are very efficient in finding out the direction, the concept, and then the way to go. And then it's just divide and conquer, as you always mention it very nicely. So, and then this is also the part where most of the people just fail because they have great ideas, but having an idea is only like 10% of the whole process. So execution is the difficulty. And if you do it right and quick, and this is the point where AI comes into the market today, because you are just able to execute so much faster than in the last 10 years. So if you have an idea, you are able to do it actually alone. If you have a team, even better, because then you can accelerate it by 10x, 20x immediately.
Well, and I think, so Bob's talked a little bit about our team that we're building and the team and the support we have. But I think from your vision of Ascendium is what we're really holding on to, right? Of fast launching products, taking your very sealed team of AI engineers, fast launching solutions, sometimes in 48 hours, with the caveat that I want to finish on. With Sebastian's networking, we've brought in some great software development folks to kind of finalize some of these, right? So we've got a great, powerful group around us. But from kind of your perspective, Sebastian, I'd love you to talk to me a little bit about where AI is, where you think it's going to go. And then that'll kind of segue into the projects we're actually working on right now, right? Because I do think this is a good time for us to talk about the hourly tech, some of the sandbox stuff that we're working on. Bob and I talked about the server, and I think we can share a little bit of that 100,000-foot view of where we see the world going and the industries we're attacking. But, and I know that was a long-winded question to ask. So just to start off, like, where do you sit with AI today? How do you see us applying it? And then how do you see the brands that are applying it well? And then potentially, where does that go a year from now, right?
I mean, it's such a fast-moving market. And I remember you and me talking about ChatGPT, if you remember, where I said since 3 or 4 weeks, I have the feeling there's something off with ChatGPT, something's wrong. And I think 3 or 4 days ago, I read in the news that OpenAI is struggling in the market. They don't have enough paying customers, problems with, competitors because they're so fast moving. And here comes the problem, because they're so big, they're also starting to become slow in a fast moving market. And this is where the problems start to be. And there's many companies out there that do it right. They're fast moving. They are very agile in their development. And this is also the approach that we follow. We move very quickly. We have an overview of the market and the products, tools, technology that comes out every day. We work with everything to be able to have an agnostic approach where we can just, if something doesn't work anymore, let's connect something else to it and make it better with the new available technology. And the difference between the old development and the new development is the stability. So the stability was just, we have a roadmap, we developed a system for a year or 2 or 3, depending on how big the system will be in the end. But this doesn't work by today's standards anymore, because you have to be really quick. Because if you have 3 years of development time for your product, maybe after 2 months, somebody else created the same thing in a better version. And you have a big budget, spending money, having employees. It's just not today's standard anymore.
Well, it's such an interesting perspective too. And from my own seat, right? Because now I've been diving into AI and tech for about 2 years. And I would say since the launch of Ascendium, like, I don't even know how much I've learned or what I've forgotten in that process. But at a very high level, when you talk to the internal CEOs in any SaaS space, this is impacting fucking org charts hard, and I think the language that's out there for the Americans that are scared right now, like everything else, man, the conversation is superficial and it's not landing where it really is. What I mean by this is I can't tell you how many articles I'm reading or CEOs I talk to personally that are just enamored for the first time ever, Sebastian, at how some startups, like even one of our competitors, Landed got to a 30 million market space with a team of 3. There's other AI companies out there, HSM, what DeepSeek just did in comparison to the bloated labor that some of these other concepts had. And you're right with the technology, but I think the technology is at a standpoint now where for the first time in my life, being in team development, leadership, operations for 25 years, I'm hearing CEOs in all space for the first time. We're starting to romanticize that thin and lean teams are the smart way forward, but it also is because of what you just said. We're more nimble. The world's changing greatly right now, guys. We're talking about tech. We could have a whole episode about the US dollar, about BRICS, about all the transitions that we're going to go through at the same time. And I think what it's doing for a lot of folks, Sebastian, is it's causing friction and it's making people lose focus. And then I see kind of people going the extremes. And this is for like the hiring subject, politics, relationship, it doesn't matter. And it's almost so much information arbitrage that people don't know where to go next. Now with the AI space, what we see being applied today and how we're approaching this with kind of tailor-fitting solutions, I just think there's a big legway forward. But the story that I'm trying to unpack here is for brands that are out there and you're working on legacy systems and you're working on legacy teams, most of the GDP in the States is declining a little bit, right? So as a group, we're growing, but we're growing because of the AI bubble. Most of my clients in all spaces have not had the best year, and this has been consistent since post-pandemic. If you're in a seat where you're making decisions, I don't care about the size of your business, you must start inspecting some of these conversations, whether it's with Sebastian, Shaun, Ascendium. I don't even care if it's large organizations. If you sit in a leadership position and you're not investigating your workflows today, you're fucked in 18 months. You're probably fucked tomorrow. If you're sitting somewhere with 30 people and you think you can eliminate those 30 people to 2 with AI, you're just as fucked. And I think that's just like, it's a weird conversation to have, Sebastian, but I know that you, myself, and Bob are passionate about that. And what I really feel at a foundational level, what we're doing when we get on discovery calls is finding clients' pain points, listening to their opportunities. If we can't provide the best solution, which we haven't been through that yet, but we'll send them in the right direction. I'm just curious for you to kind of bounce back and forth with me on that. Are you seeing some of the same transitions in Europe, I guess? You know, so the curiosity I have being a partner with you is I know that the regulations are much more stout. So to you guys, do you see these transitions coming just as fast for Europe, or do you feel like it might be a little bit of a lag because of the legality constraints?
It's slower. People are aware of it and they understood what they can do with AI and what's possible. But as you said, the regulations are way more firm here. So we have a lot of data privacy regulations that are blocking a lot of things. So for example, if you get, I think it was when the newest version of GPT came out, we had it a month later because they had to make sure that everything is according to GDPR and all the regulations that are in Europe. But this is not a real roadblock, but the people still don't know where to use it. And this is also the point where we usually go into the conversation. So they need to look at their daily business in a different way. So I always tell them, hey, if you take something 2 or 3 times a day in your hands and it's a thing that you do every day, you don't need to do it. So AI can take it for you, or even an automation is fine for you. And this is also something where I had to rewire my brain a little bit because I used to think in always being top notch. You know, my customers have to have the newest, best technology, but this is often not the case because it's sometimes just a very, very easy, simple system that they need that makes their life very easy. For example, we had one client who made his sales acts more efficient by just taking out the processes in his sales team of comparing documents. So he gets documents by his clients, and his sales employees just were comparing documents and handbooks and all that stuff. And we just built a system for him, and he now 10x'd his sales, basically.
Well, and I think this is a good segue to go right into what we're doing with HC Resource and the hourly beta tool that we have, right? And I think we can announce this. Landed name's going to be staffed. We've got 55 domains that we've purchased just in case we have to adjust it. But I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, Sebastian, because I really feel exactly what you just articulated is exactly what we're building. And maybe we can talk about the future vision that we have with this. But I mean, from your engineer perspective, I don't think we're doing anything really lights out with a genetic process for that tool we're building. But I think it's the same thing we just said. It's, you know, I think even you and I had internal, I don't want to say arguments with the engineering, but it's like, do you guys just trust that it's working? We had to get some folks in, but do you want to talk about that a little bit from your perspective as an engineer? Like, it was probably not a ton of development, but it's a massive lift for the clients. And it was just a space that people weren't thinking about. So I'm just curious to hear you talk about that for a bit.
It's a ton of development, but not tech-wise. So what's the hard development part is to understand the problems that are in the industry, the pain points. And thanks to you and your great team, we figured it out pretty quickly because your operators are in the restaurants and they know the struggle of the recruiting process. So this is where we met and we came to the conclusion we can do a lot of things together. It's not the most difficult thing to develop or to set up the systems, but to have these pain points and to find out how to solve them. This is the real development part that we had here.
Well, and I agree with that too, Sebastian. I think the things that our teams have done well together too is we've been on a handful of co-development projects. I've consulted on a couple Y Combinator co-development projects that are just, in my opinion, automating the wrong processes or not, or just automating things just to say they automated. You know, I don't want to be rude to those folks because I'm sure they have a great idea, but they don't understand the fucking pain points of the industry they're in. And if you don't do that and you don't have the knowledge, and in my opinion, you have no business being in there. But that in itself is such a uphill battle for most people, right? For someone to have a pain point in their head to then speak to someone they just met to tailor fit a solution. It's no wonder why we have a lot of big box solutions that are sold as products, because that's just easier than what we're doing, I would argue, right? Like, hey, if you're going to get into this workflow for an ATS or an applicant tracking system or an HRIS or an inventory system, a POS system, we're going to put you in this pretty box because we're going to architecturally structure your information in a way that's going to be the most cohesive for every person that works with us. But it might not be the workflow you need, nor do we give a shit. We're just going to bully software to make it do the best you can. Where we kind of come in and say, hey, we want to hear your pain point. We've got this really quick solution we could tailor fit, but we're really going to get to know the client first. And I think that's the difference with my operators and recruiters as well. Even when we get on the discovery call, we know, being in the space for 25 years, that even though every client looks the same, their pain points are going to be broad, so this client might be suffering with X and it's because of Y. What's been profound for me to learn with working with you guys, though, is that adaptability of utilizing AI and saying, so just to talk about this a little bit, we are going in with a recruiting solution right now. At the same time, we're co-developing an open table knockoff, a CRM, a database, an ATS. What's been profound to me being new into the software space is how knowing that same pain point has enabled us to build a infrastructure that we can kind of grow off of. And I love you just to add a couple notes on that, because again, I'm not an engineer, but me articulating to you the 17-step process and the solutions and then adding some hardware in, we kind of just went off to the races with everything we can do. But I'm curious to that was your background that noticed that, right? That was me talking about the opportunities and you're like, Shaun, we can do all this on the same system. And to me, that's the big differentiation with Ascendium right now. But how did you see that? And then secondly, how are we doing it?
It's exactly how you describe it, and we are working the same way. So we are not selling something because this is not our mentality. Our mentality is the problem-solving mentality, how we heard it in the beginning of our conversation already. So usually what I do is I just talk to people and I try to learn most about them and their company, how they work and how their systems work, what they pay money for. And then I try to figure out if there is a better solution. If there's no better solution, it is what it is. But usually there is a better solution, and especially now in the hospitality industry with your surrounded companies, there's a lot of things that we can actually do. And this is the great thing of networking again, and also to see that it's always new to other people. So the hospitality folk, they are so focused on their core business
day to day.
They just don't see that there are possibilities, systems for them. It's just a salesperson that's calling and saying, hey, I have this great system for you. You absolutely need to use it. And for the most cases, they have such a system or a competitor of them. They pay a lot of money for it, but there might be a better, cheaper solution, or even a solution that's for free because there is an open source version of something very, very similar that you can even customize. So this is basically the whole thing where we came together on this.
Well, I think to connect it for the consumers that are listening, because most of these folks will be from the hospitality industry. What I exposed to Sebastian, and I was kind of aware of, but I didn't have a solution for it, is if we take three categories in hospitality, if we take recruiting, if we take sales, and then we take marketing, and sales and marketing are adjacent, I know. The first name, last name, phone number, email is pretty much what we need for all databases. What's profound, though, to say, I think what we exposed Sebastian to is, right now in your restaurant units, guys, you're leasing a software called OpenTable or No Way or XYZ. It's a CRM. Most hospitality folks, Sebastian, have never heard the term customer relationship management tool. They do it all day, but they just don't have that visibility and that thought process, right? It's like, well, we're going to do this internally for the brick and mortar. We do this. A keyword never came out. Then you go into an ATS, which is essentially the same backbones as a CRM. You're sold to because you said yes. Right. And no one's really trying to provide this. So, and then when you go into your inventory systems, and Bob and I talked about this a lot. Every restaurant unit has a computer inside of there. They also have a telecom stack. It's always an afterthought. We're talking 8 to 18% EBITDA in the best ran restaurants. And then you've got commodities in the States that have increased by 6%. And I think what Sebastian and Bob saw quickly is, oh my goodness, these guys have 3 to 4 mainline providers that they're leasing their data from in congruence. And the features that we can launch off of there, we can launch off the same technology that we're launching for recruiting. So I think this is at scale, Sebastian, and we've talked a ton about this. Most discovery calls we've been on for the hourly beta go into tailor fitting an enterprise solution because, the client hears what we can do. And it's like, wait a minute, like talk to us about all these systems. If you're out there right now and struggling with any of this, automation, HR, recruitment, it can even be a ticketing system, reach out to us, and Sebastian, I want to give this back over to you. I just know we're gassing out a little bit on time, but, what we're really unpacking, hopefully for the guests here today, is a lot of the folks that I work with, tech's going to be a dirty word. And I don't mean they're scared of tech, but they just don't have the time, like you said, to really get immersed in it. And I think what we're doing really well is educating people on the foundation of where they are, meeting them where the needs are actually needed, and then just listening. I mean, I hate to just boil it down to that easy, but I really think we're doing a good job of that. Was that a similar perspective for you, though? I mean, did you assume restaurants were leasing that much of their data or had that many third-party tools to operate? I'm just curious from an outsider perspective.
I never thought about it before. When I met you and saw all the systems, then it was pretty clear. I mean, it was a trend. Everybody lives in the cloud today, and cloud is usually a SaaS product in there, and data is on their hardware, so it's not actually owned by you in most cases. And this is also a big point where we work towards being not too big tech friendly, because we always say you should be your owner of your data and your systems, because we recently saw it when Cloudflare went down, all the systems went down with it, and suddenly you couldn't access all your systems anymore.
People got to see how much Cloudflare touches real quick. I think you and I were texting that day, I guess, because everything that I normally work on is down. And let's just talk about that a little bit before we finish the session here. I think that's going to get worse, Sebastian. I really do. As we're growing, there's some nuanced conversations we can have around there. But I do think you and I are pretty passionate about this, and probably not as passionate about Bob. What I love about us, though, too, and giving over to you, how do we meet people where they are right now with the knowledge that this might get worse? And if it gets worse, right, if we continue to build on the cloud in perpetuity and the cyber threats, because let's be honest, we're talking about the good of AI. Also, there's a lot of hacking that can go on, right, where people now don't need the time to do it. Can you try to paint a vision of where you see the world being maybe in this conversation in 18 months, even 24 months? I mean, I think this gets worse, but I'm kind of a caveman to this. I just know I've seen it happen a lot more. Does it increase or decrease over the next 24 months as far as cloud attacks?
The bigger the system gets, the more valuable data is in there, the more attractive it is to be hacked. You can check pages where you can see all the incidents on smaller sites, on bigger sites. It's just, it's scary sometimes if there are millions or even billions of data sets that are stolen. Of course, it will get more and more. Hackers will be more advanced in the future. I mean, we work with both worlds. We have the hyperscalers. We also work with a data center in a box that we are working on with Bob Jamieson to really make sure it is your own data, but you are also not safe to not get hacked with your own systems. The danger is always there, and everything can be hacked. There's always something new coming out. There's always a brain that sits down and just wants to destroy. So there is always the danger of that. But I also see that the bigger systems, in a big system, small mistake, you see it, Cloudflare, all the systems between there go down. Of course, it will be bigger problems in the future as well.
It was a coding update, right? Or they said flashware, something simple that shouldn't have taken it all down, but just one wrong step in a massive bloated system. The other thing, just to talk about that too, and again, I know this is a conversation in the European nations, but it's just starting to percolate in the States. So obviously I live in Indiana. We've got the metadata centers being built. There's a LEAP project that's going on that has Illy involved. And then the northern part of the state, because the main internet line runs through Indiana, they're building a Microsoft data center. Just started to happen about 2 months ago, and it's starting to percolate quite a bit now. Lots of pushback from water prices, electricity prices, from local municipalities that are just getting hosed. So do you see any of that happen in Europe? And I know we're probably ahead of the game for the data center in the box, but I don't think most consumers know we don't have the power resources to scale AI to where we want it to be in 5 years, right? I mean, this is a conversation I think we talk about internally, but where do you see that going? And are there some percolating informations in Europe for data centers being built? Maybe they're pushing back on it a little bit harder than here.
In Europe, we have the issue that, we have the Green parties often in power here. So in Germany, we don't have any nuclear power plant anymore. And I think this would be the backbone of AI. Just the energy consumption is crazy. And if you have a country that is only reliant on renewable energies, it's a very difficult thing to achieve. Same goes for most of Europe. If you look to China, Russia, they're building nuclear power plants. They are even teaching their kids in school already quite a lot of stuff about AI in China especially. It's the future. The more tech savvy you are, the more tech savvy you teach your kids, the better it is for all these systems. So in Europe, we have a lot of drawbacks on that. I don't think that we will be a player in the game, although the richest guy of Germany is just investing 11 billion into his own AI center here in Germany. But we need to see, because it still needs to be built. We don't know how the world looks in 2 years when it's done, or 3 years. I don't know the exact date when it should be done. But the world is changing quickly so fast. So a data center might not be even necessary anymore when quantum computing starts, and they are advancing quickly in that too. And this might change everything again.
Well, I think the same way of kind of how we're approaching this, and I like it too, is like, I feel that the three of us and all of our teams, we're aware of where the world is potentially going. We're also aware of where the world came from, and we're really applying real world solutions to what works right now. Sebastian, it's been great getting to know you, man. It's been great to have you on this session. I just love these two because we work together, guys. But a lot of times when you're working, you don't get a chance to unpack some of this. So we'll have all your socials listed. Sebastian is phenomenal at networking, phenomenal man, phenomenal father. Yeah, you're definitely going to get to see him quite a bit as we're going to be co-hosting some AI episodes. But just to leave the guest, Sebastian, from your perspective, what are some folks you want to see kind of contacting us at Ascendium that we can help? What do they look like? Some folks from your network, but just leave the folks with a little bit of what you'd like to see come into our sphere so we can help them.
I mean, everybody who knows they should do something, and they probably already have an idea where to go with automation, AI systems, or even just basic computer systems, they should just call us for a chit chat about their situation, because we can always provide a good advice for everybody who is thinking about that topic already and doesn't know where to actually go. I think that's the best idea. And if you have a business, there's always something to optimize or automate. There's always some potential.
I love that too, Sebastian. We'll leave the fans with one real life story. We were on a conference call and a discovery call about a week ago where the end solution was us turning them over to GoCo, one of our channel partners. And I mean this, guys, like, conversations do not cost anything. And I loved how Sebastian said that. If you're sitting in a decision-making seat, and I don't care if you're a small restaurant or a massive healthcare enterprise, if you have an opportunity with some systems, with solutions, and you think you know how to solve it, reach out to us. We'll share all of our discovery call links or calendar links, but Sebastian and I love having conversations. And again, like I say in every episode, if we can't help you, we'll point you in the right direction. At the end of the day, we are not folks that are trying to grab every last dollar or euro that's out there, but we do love to solve problems. So Sebastian, it's been great to get to know you. We'll have all the socials listed below. Guys, thanks again for tuning in to the Entrepreneur episodes of Taking Chances. This has been a great last 2 episodes to showcase some of our partners that you see out there. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and stay in line for the next one. We'll see you soon.